The law on public officers. Public office. It is a right, authority, and duty. It is created and conferred by law by which, for a given period, either fixed by law or enduring at the pleasure of the creating power, an individual is invested with some portion of the sovereign functions of the government to be exercised by him for the benefit of the public. Characteristics. Public office is a public trust. Public office is also not a property right. Generally, a public office is not a property within the sense of the constitutional guarantees of due process of law, but is a public trust or agency. Congress may amend at any time the law to change or even withdraw the statutory right. Exception: analogous to property in a limited context. Due process may be invoked when the dispute concerns constitutional right to security of tenure. Public office is also not a contract. It differs from a contract which is limited in its duration and specific in its objects. Terms agreed definite rights, upon defined rights and obligations of parties. Neither may depart from them without assent of the other. Public office is personal. Public office being personal, the death of a public officer terminates his right to occupy the contested office and extinguishes his counterclaim for damages. His widow or his heirs cannot be substituted in the counterclaim suit. Public office is a the right to public office is not a natural right. The right exists only by virtue of a law expressly or impliedly creating and conferring it. There is no such thing as a vested interest or an estate in an office, or even an absolute right to hold it. Elements of public office. It is created by the Constitution or by the legislature, or created by a municipality or other body through authority conferred by the legislature. It must possess a delegation of a portion of the sovereign power of government, to be exercised for the benefit of the public. The powers conferred and duties to be discharged must be defined, directly or impliedly, by the legislature or through legislative authority. Duties must be performed independently and without control of a superior power, other than law unless they are those of an inferior or subordinate office, created or authorized by the legislature and placed under the general control of a superior officer or body. It must have some permanency and continuity and not be only temporary or occasional. Note that the elements of permanence and continuity is not indispensable. A salary is a usual but unnecessary criterion for determining the nature of the position. It is not conclusive. The salary is a mere incident and forms no part of the office. Creation, modification, and abolition. The modes of creation: 1 by constitution, 2 by statute or law, and 3 by authority of law. Modification or abolition. Generally, the power to create an office includes the power to modify or abolish it. Hence, the power to modify or abolish an office is also primarily legislative, except where the Constitution prohibits such modification or abolition. The President has the power to reorganize the executive. The President's power of control gives him authority to deactivate the functions of particular offices. As far as bureaus, agencies, or offices in the executive department are concerned, the President's power of control may justify him to inactivate the functions of a particular office, or certain laws may grant him the broad authority to carry out reorganization measures. The modes of acquiring title to public office: 1 appointment, 2 election, 3 succession, and 4 by operation of law. In appointment, there is a designation of a person, or by person or persons having authority, to fill an office or public function, to discharge the duties of the office or trust. Characteristics of appointment: it is discretionary in nature. performed by officer in which it is vested, only condition being that the appointee should possess qualifications required by law. Generally, it is an executive function, and it cannot be hindered by Congress. Another mode of acquiring title to public office is election, the choice or selection of candidates to public office by popular vote through the use of the ballot. Another is by succession. Example, in case of death, permanent disability, removal from office, or resignation of the president, the vice president becomes the president to serve the unexpired term of the president. The fourth mode is by operation of law. Example, by direct provision of law such as Section 8, Article 8, which provides that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is the ex officio chairman of the JBC or the Judicial Bar Council. The title to public office may either be permanent or temporary. An acting appointment is temporary appointment and revocable in character. The mere designation does not confer security of tenure, as the person designated occupies the position only in an acting capacity, and such acting capacity shall not exceed 12 months, but the appointee may be replaced sooner if a qualified civil service eligible person becomes available. Presidential appointments. The President may appoint the heads of the executive department, ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, officers of the armed forces from the rank of colonel to naval captain, and other officers whose appointments are vested in him in the Constitution. All other officers of the government whose appointments are not otherwise provided for by law are also appointed by the President. Those whom the President may be authorized by law to appoint, and officers lower in rank whose appointments the Congress may by law vest in the President alone. Commission on Appointments Confirmation Requirement. Those specifically enumerated under Section 16, Article 7 of the Constitution, such as heads of the Executive Department, ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, officers of the Armed Forces of the Philippines from the rank of colonel to naval captain, other officers whose appointments are vested in him by the Constitution, requires the confirmation of the Commission on Appointments. When is the Commission on Appointment confirmation not required? All other officers whose appointments are not otherwise provided for by law. All officers whom the President may be authorized by law to appoint. Appointments explicitly exempted from the confirmation requirement under the Constitution. Example, a Vice President as a member of the Cabinet does not need confirmation from the Commission on Appointments. The members of the Supreme Court and judges of the lower courts, the Ombudsman and his deputies, the Commission on Human Rights commissioners. Midnight appointments. Generally, a president or acting president shall not make appointments 2 months immediately before the next presidential elections and up to the end of his term, except when prejudicial to public service or safety, and members of the judiciary or the Supreme Court. Temporary appointments to executive position when continued vacancies therein will prejudice public service or endanger public safety. The prohibition does not apply to members of the Supreme Court and the judiciary. Note that this provision applies only to presidential appointments. There is no law that prohibits local executive officials from making appointments during the last days of their tenure. Eligibility and qualification requirements. Eligibility. State of being legally fit or qualified to be chosen. Eligibility to a public office is a continuing nature and must exist both at the commencement and during the occupancy of an office. Integrity is also a continuing requirement. Ineligibility. The lack of qualifications prescribed by the Constitution or applicable law. Legally or otherwise disqualified to hold an office. disqualified to be elected to an office, disqualified to hold an office if elected or appointed to it. Disabilities and inhibitions of public officers. Prohibitions imposed under the Constitution against the holding of two or more positions. Members of Congress shall not appear as counsel before any court, electoral tribunal, or quasi-judicial and other administrative bodies. They cannot also be interested in any contract with or in any franchise or special privilege granted by the government or any subdivision, agency, or instrumentality thereof, including GOCCs or its subsidiary, or they cannot intervene in any matter before any office of the government for his pecuniary benefit or where he may be called upon to act on account of his office. Disabilities and inhibitions of public officers. The President, Vice President, members of the Cabinet, and their deputies or assistants, unless otherwise allowed by the Constitution, shall not, directly or indirectly, practice any other profession, or participate in any business, or be financially interested in any contract with, or in any franchise or special privilege granted by the government, or any subdivision, agency, or instrumentality thereof, including GOCCs or its subdivisions, shall avoid conflict of interest in the conduct of their office. Members of the Constitutional Commission shall not hold any other office or employment or engage in the practice of any profession or in the active management or control of any business that may be affected by the functions of his office, or be financially interested directly or indirectly in any contract with or in any franchise or special privilege granted by the government or any subdivision, agencies, or instrumentalities, including GOCCs or their subsidiaries. This shall also apply to the Ombudsman and his deputies during his term. Unless otherwise allowed by law or by the primary functions of his position, no appointive official shall hold any other office or employment in the government or any subdivision, agency, or instrumentality thereof, including GOCCs or their subsidiaries. No member of the armed forces in the active service shall at any time be appointed or designated in any capacity to a civilian position in the government, including GOCCs or any other subsidiaries. Grounds for disqualification to hold public office: mental or physical incapacity, misconduct or commission of a crime, losing candidate in the election within 1 year following the date of election, prohibitions from office and not from employment, holding more than one office except for ex officio status, relationship with the appointing power or nepotism, consecutive terms exceeding the allowable number of terms, impeachment, removal or suspension from office. Note that where there is no constitutional or statutory declaration or ineligibility for suspension or removal from office, the courts may not impose the disability. The grounds provided for under the LGC. The office newly created or the emoluments of which have been increased. Forbidden office. And being an elective official, except losing candidates in barangay elections. The doctrine of necessary implication. All powers necessary for the effective exercise of the express powers are deemed impliedly granted. Ministerial versus discretionary duties. When we say ministerial, the discharge is imperative and it must be done by the public officer. Therefore, it can be compelled by mandamus. Discretionary, the public officer may do whichever way he wants, provided it is in accordance with law and not in a whimsical manner. It cannot be compelled by mandamus except when there is grave abuse of discretion. Rights and privileges of public officers. They have the right to an office, compensation or salary, appointment, vacation and sick leave, maternity, retirement, longevity pay, pension, self-organization, and protection of temporary employees. Note that the right to self-organization of government employees, while the Constitution recognizes the right of public employees to organize They are prohibited from staging strikes, demonstrations, mass leads, walkouts, and other forms of mass action which may result to temporary cessation of work or disturbance of public service. Their right to self-organization is limited only to form unions or to associate without including the right to strike. Labor unions in the government may bargain for better terms and conditions of employment by either petitioning the Congress for better terms and conditions and negotiating with the appropriate government agencies for the improvement of those not fixed by law. Preventive suspension. Preventive suspension pending investigation is not a penalty. It is a measure intended to enable the disciplining authority to investigate charges against the respondent by preventing the latter from intimidating or in any way influencing witnesses against him. If the investigation is not finished and a decision is not rendered within that period, the suspension will be lifted, and the respondent will automatically be reinstated. If, after investigation, the respondent is found innocent for the charges and is exonerated, he should be reinstated. The period of preventive suspension cannot be deducted from whatever penalty may be imposed upon the erring officer. The periods for preventive suspension. For local elective officials, 60 days as the maximum for a single offense within a single year for several offenses, but not exceeding the term of office. For civil service officers and employees, 90 days as the maximum. Ombudsman may suspend for 6 months. Accountability of public officers. Public office is a public trust. The public officers and employees must, at all times, be accountable to the people, serve them with utmost responsibility, integrity, loyalty, and efficiency, act with patriotism and justice, and lead modest lives. Types of accountability: administrative, criminal, civil. This is called the threefold liability rule. Under this rule, a public officer may be held civilly, criminally, and administratively liable for a wrongful act or omission. The administrative liability is separate and distinct from the penal and civil liabilities. Thus, the dismissal of an administrative case does not necessarily bar the filing of a criminal prosecution for the same or similar acts, which were the subject of the administrative complaint. Command Responsibility Doctrine. A superior officer is liable for the acts of his subordinates in the following instances. The law expressly makes him liable. He negligently or willfully fails to require his subordinates to conform to prescribed regulations. He negligently or carelessly oversees the business of the office as to give his subordinates the opportunity for default. He directed, cooperated, or authorized the wrongful act, or he negligently or willfully employs or retains unfit or incompetent subordinates. The Arias Doctrine. The head of office is not required to examine every single detail of any transaction from its inception until it is finally approved. We would be setting a bad precedent if a head of office plagued by all too common problems, dishonest or negligent subordinates, overwork, multiple assignments or positions, or plain incompetence, is suddenly swept into a conspiracy conviction simply because he did not personally examine every single detail, painstakingly trace every step from inception, and investigate the motives of every person involved in the transaction before affixing his signature as the final approving authority. All heads of offices have to rely, to a reasonable extent, on their subordinates, and on the good faith of those who prepare bids, purchase supplies, or enter into negotiations. There has to be some added reason why he should examine each voucher in such detail. The Condonation Doctrine. The condonation doctrine connotes a complete extinguishment of liability of a public officer or denying the right to remove one from office because of misconduct during a prior term. Prospective application of the doctrine under the new ruling. The Supreme Court simply finds no legal authority to sustain the condonation doctrine in this jurisdiction. The abandonment of the condonation doctrine should be prospective in application, for the reason that judicial decisions applying or interpreting the laws or the Constitution until reversed shall form part of the legal system of the Philippines. Term limits. The term means the time during which the officer may claim to hold the office as a right, and fixes the interval after which the several incumbents shall succeed one another. The tenure represents the term during which the incumbent actually holds the office. The tenure may be shorter than the term for the reasons within or beyond the power of the incumbent.